clappy.
In case
So-
you need it.
What I need it?
I don't know, in
chicken?
case you want to just like show it to the people. Come on, Bri.
Can you see this
I
dark
can.
picture on the?
Yeah.
So
in this
yeah.
video,
yes,
we'll be talking about how to actually perform the Kinjas,
right.
right?
Right.
So let's do it. Take us through it. How do we do this?
Description. Okay. So you'll sit, and most times when we do these, we sit. It can be straight-legged like this, where my feet are flat on the floor and parallel. But most times, when I learned how to do this, it's your legs are crossed. So you could be sitting on the floor with like crossed legs. It doesn't have to be a full lotus or anything like that, but crossed legs. But even if I'm working in a chair, because that's the way I learned, that's the way I still do them.
You do them sitting down cross-legged.
I do them that way, and it's like, because that's comfortable for me. I've done them other ways, and that works just fine. It's just that for me, it's just the routine, right? So I just do that. But if I'm sitting in a chair or a bench or something, I'll just cross my ankles. It does the same thing. The configuration is the same, so it doesn't really matter. You're just, you're basically sealing your energy off from, that configuration sort of cuts the energy, going through your legs. So it's like your tailbone is actually pulling up more energy at that point. So, because you're cutting off from here down these appendages, right? So, and it does change and sort of makes a different configuration of energy within you. It sort of concentrates it. So that's why there's so many of those things that are done cross-legged. But not everything has to be, obviously.
Does it matter like right over left or left over right?
Nope.
Okay, but you're just touching your, like your ankles together,
Yeah,
basically,
exactly.
in a
Exactly.
crossed
Yep.
fashion.
Exactly. That's all I'm doing. If I'm using a chair or a bench or whatever, yeah, it's the same. Usually, again, like every meditation, back is straight is the big deal, right? I mean, that's really the key. If there is one thing that you need to do besides relax, is to keep your back straight, right? So that way, that central channel, the flow is much less impeded if that's the case. So it's always good in the beginning to get the maximum amount of flow through there as you can. So being straight and keeping your chin up and maybe slightly back to accentuate the the neck and keep it all in alignment. That's good. I tend to not use a support in the back, but if somebody absolutely has to, then that's okay. It tends to reduce the flow a little bit, but not overly, right? So. And there have been times when I've done it with, using the back of a chair, or, we would even use a wall, so like configure our place where it was like up against the wall and you could use your back against the wall and there were no chairs accessible. So, and that's perfectly fine as long as, again, it's straight. You want to just always sort of use that as your benchmark. As long as your back is straight, then that's fine. Shoulders are relaxed, everything's sort of relaxed. In this, because there's you're stimulating pressure in and out, there's a slight tension in your stomach, much like Qigong, right? So there's just that little bit of pressure in your stomach. So let's say if a sit-up was 100% tense of that area, maybe like 10 or 20% of that would be the appropriate tension there. So I'm not letting the breath go down into the belly, like a lot of yogic breathing and those types of things. And I'm not letting that expand. I'm holding it. And so it tends to make the lungs expand more to the back. And so you're building your lung, capacity better that way as well. So, and it's just one of those ways that I'm constantly sort of pushing the button. If it's a mechanism, it's like when I keep that little bit of tension there, it's like it causes the circulation to move through the territory that you're working a little bit, more forcefully. Let's put it that way. So, yeah. So there's that. So that's pretty much the configuration of the body anyway, except for the Kinja, right, which is the mudra or the hand configuration, and they're broken into three segments, right? So we're going to do the first one, but I'll just mention the three, right? So the first three are, where my fingers are interlaced. The second three is that they're not interlaced, but my hands are together. And the last three are just a totally different configuration. They're connected, but they're not, they don't look matched. Let's say one hand to the other. They're not symmetrical that way. They're just odd. Okay, so in the first one, Chu, and let's say once I make the configuration, as soon as I do that, remember that the configuration of my hands already sort of identifies and there's a correlation with the specific chakra and also with the energy that it intones to, right, or entrains to. And so as soon as I make that hand configuration, whether you know what you're doing or not, as soon as you make that, it's stimulating that chakra. That chakra's sort of been pushed. It's coming on as a light, basically. It's being stimulated.
The energy that's flowing through your body, through your field,
Yep.
gets more concentrated or focused in that
Around
area.
that chakra. Right.
It's kind of like you're always saying, like, where the mind goes, the chi flows, right? So
Right.
this is kind of like where the hand configurations go, the chi flows.
Exactly. So it's like it's immediately directing the energy flow more through that chakra. So it's reconfiguring it from its original.
Okay. And so in these exercises, we're going to be combining that hand position with the breathing pattern, which you'll go over, but also this diagram, this line pattern.
Right.
So how does the diagram just enhances that even further, that concentration? Or?
The diagram, I mean, they're very mysterious, right? We don't really know where they came from originally. So we just know that they're thousands of years old. And so, and basically, like basic geometric forms, everything has a certain frequency attached to it, right? It has a resonance. And so an energetic, fingerprint, basically, right? And so these diagrams have that as well, but they're coordinated with that chakra. So the diagram itself is let's say a graphic representation of the energy in that chakra. And so we know that the form of that energy in its essence is in that astral plane, right? So we're, closer to the source, so it's drawing from that and connected to that in a specific way, of which we don't always know. And then, so using the diagram, it's like again, a graphic representation of that configuration in the astral. So we're using it as a bridge again. And that bridge transfers the energy from that source point to the chakra. And so we're making these configurations to help facilitate that bridge. We're building it stronger and stronger so that we're getting more flow in and then sending that flow back. So it's not just one direction. It's not just coming into us, moving through the whole system and then going back out through that territory so that we're stimulating the flow on a regular basis. So it's like it's like breathing, right? It's an expansion and contraction of that so that we get more and more use out of it, and it's building it stronger and stronger, basically. Yep.
So it's stimulating a connection with, this energy center that's even greater than our little energy center, basically.
Yeah, it's basically, let's say, the actual energy center of that first chakra, whatever that would be in the astral, right? The ideal, the actual.
The ideal of first. Let's say if it were using Chu as an example in the first chakra, it's like the ideal first chakra.
Correct. And so because thousands and thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people have used this over, millennia, that so every time we do that, we know from, our theory anyway, that as we do that, just like praying to a saint or something, it stimulates a connection and makes that, that energetic idea grow. So they're adding energy to it every time they send a prayer to that specific deity or whatever. And then the same thing with this. So every time somebody's doing the Kinjas and working on their first chakra and using that diagram, it sends the flow of energy that goes back out, goes back into that large configuration. And then, when you're drawing in, it draws it back again. So there's this back and forth. And so it's a way to stimulate that passage of energy, not just to me, but also through me and back again. So we're basically utilizing, the flow of every other person that has done this over the generations or whatever it is. So it's like almost like a lineage type of thing, right? So the stronger it's built, the better it is. And so we're taking advantage of that by using basically the same technique that's always been used. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so after I'm sitting with my legs crossed, and whether I'm in a chair on the ground, and
Right.
I've got my hand configuration, and we're going to go over the hand configurations individually
Sure.
in separate videos for
Right.
each one of them, because we want to make sure everyone has all the good pictures and all the details and everything.
Right.
But generally speaking, with this one, you maybe can
Yep.
kind of show us how
I'm crossing these fingers. The two index fingers go together. The two thumbs and the base of the thumbs go together, and then the tops or the pads of the thumbs touch the tops of the index fingers, so like that. So the thumbs are sort of, the knuckles are peeking up, right?
Right. And this one's just for chew.
This is just for chew, yeah.
For the first shot.
And so but I'm not closing my hands; they're open in the back, right? So because you need, according to the sources, they need a place for the chi to float. So it's important that that's not closed off. It's not just a solid configuration. For every physical part, there's an invisible part, right? So, and this is that invisible configuration that will cause the chi to rotate and move and configure and stimulate the chakra and all of that and move back and forth. It denotes some kind of movement there. So, so that's the configuration. So I'll go over the breathing. I'm breathing in through my nose very slowly, getting a good deep breath. And then the second part, when I blow out, it's 3 stages. They call it a pipe, which is just like you're whistling but with no sound, controlling your breath. And he would always say it's like you're sending a stream of air out, like you were blowing out a candle, but it was out here. So you're directing the flow in a narrow stream out. Okay, and so it's that first part, and it's broken into 3 parts basically. So then the second part, it moves to snake breathing, which is just a right. So again, you can see that it's like the lip configuration is different. So this is sort of and this configuration of the lips denotes a more relaxed state. Right, so sort of like the relax before the focus. Like you can get an intense focus if you have an intense relax first. So there's all of these things have multiple stages, and so the lips being in this configuration of the pipe is sort of denotes this very relaxed stage, or just starting to think about concentrating. And then when my teeth show like that, but they're not touching, it denotes, more focused concentration. So like air coming out of a tire or something, or snake breathing. That was their analogy. And then at the very end, I'm saying t, or making the sound like the consonant T. So if you can say T, 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 the sound that makes, the tip of your tongue touches the roof of your mouth just behind your front teeth. When you say the consonant T, if you analyze it, that's what happens, right? So that contact connects that central channel, right? Because there's 2 parts of that central channel. One part that goes from the perineum up through the spine, over the top of the head, and forms right behind the front teeth and the gum line. And so the second part goes from the perineum and goes up the center line of the body and ends at the tip of the tongue. So when you put those 2 pieces together, it makes the circuit. Right? So it connects the circuit. And they call that a locked breath. So usually when you do that, the energy is going out. When it's open and that connection is broken, which we do, with speech, it kind of wavers between those 2 things all the time, right? When we keep that open breath, it's the energy's moving toward us. So when we're breathing in, my tongue is down, I'm gathering energy in, and then through these 3 stages, at that there's like you're making a little impulse with your stomach, like you're tensing the muscles a little bit more. That's what I mean by impulse. I'm tensing the muscles a little bit more, like I'm sending a beam of light through the kinja, through the diagram itself, right? So it's that 3 stages again. So at the end, and you can just feel it's like a little tense in the stomach and a little pulse there, and that'll send that beam through. And so I imagine too that there's a beam from my fingers going directly from my index fingers to the diagram and sort of lighting it up, and that's it. So and then drawing breath again. And now I'm not breaking my hands each time, right? So if I'm doing the whole thing with the configuration, it's like simple. It's not difficult once you see it and once you sort of figure out the hand position.
And are you doing anything with your...
My chin goes down a little bit. It's again trying to make sure that my neck stays in alignment with my back, right? And usually when you're dealing with energy, your physical body is usually a little bit, you're positioning yourself toward that energy. Just like you would with anything physical, right? It's like nobody like around here, if we have to push a car out of the way or whatever, right? Nobody does that standing straight up. It's like you're leaning into it, right? You're trying to push something open, or you're trying to, use your force, your physical force to do that. The same configuration with an energetic force, right? So it's like I'm straight, and I never lose my straightness, but it's like just the idea, everything goes through the head. So from this straight, they'll say the first stage where everything's relaxed and up, right? As you start to breathe out, I'm moving my head down slightly, directing. And it's not like I'm not impulsing with my head. It's just that it's down because I'm sending energy out. I expect there to be some type of resistance there. So I'm using everything in my physiology to match my energetic body to say it's all going to one place.
And that place is the diagram in
That
front
place
of
is
you.
the diagram. And again, that beam goes through the diagram and attaches to the sympathetic vibration that's in the astral, right? So it's attaching to the source in that configuration.
And how? And so you'd set up the diagram, you'd print it out, and then you'd set it up like on something to hold it up vertically so it's facing you.
Yeah,
correct.
nothing
Like
fancy. It
around
can be
like,
those press boards or whatever. What's the stuff that artists use to put behind their, like photographs and things like that.
Oh, sure, like a tack board or something.
Yeah, or anything like that. It could be anything, anything that you're using for that. Just something stable so that you can do it. I probably would, you can use a push pin, but if it's right in your way, it might be distracting. So just use a piece of tape or something. So something that doesn't obscure the diagram, obviously, or contact it in any way. But just something that's out of the way and simple. Try to keep it as simple as you can. I mean, there's plenty of stuff that we do that's complex, and there's all kinds of setups and all of those things. But so for the simple things, let's keep it simple, and I think you'll have more energy to focus on the actual work as opposed to this setup that has to be just right. No, it doesn't have to be just right. It'll work either way, but.
And is there an optimal distance to have the diagram from you when you're facing it? And
not really. I mean, whatever's comfortable for you at the time. I would say, probably it could be anywhere from 3 to 5 feet away, but it could be farther too. I mean, I've done it plenty of times where I was 20 feet away. Just the diagram was a little bigger than what you'd have on an 8 by 11 sheet, right? But if it was drawn out on a larger board, which of course you could do, if you copied exactly, you could be farther away and it wouldn't make a difference. It shouldn't make a difference either way. And after a while, you're going to memorize those anyway. So, it's like you can do the Kinjas, do the hand configurations on their own and, memorize the diagram and the diagram. And so you keep that in your mind's eye while you're doing it. So, but that's much later, right? It's not something that's essential or critical in any way. So just other ways to do it later on, when you have sufficient practice enough to be able to hold it intact without it moving or changing or anything like that. Like anything with visualization, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to hold it exactly the way it is.
So with these, so we're sitting, I just want to go through to make sure we got it right.
Yeah,
but
sure.
We're sitting, we've either on the floor, on a chair, or whatever, back straight, legs crossed, and we've got our hand configuration, and we're doing that breathing, the open breathing in, and then the pipe, snake, and then the sound at the end when we're going all the way forward, and we're doing this toward the diagram. So you said that we imagine that a little beam of light is coming out of our hands.
Yes.
And does color matter, or just do?
Usually it's a bluish silver. It's usually that first etheric range that we see, right? So around the body, the closest thing to the body energy-wise. It's usually the easiest one to visualize. So I would use that if you need a color to imagine, then do that one. It's the easiest to do.
And it's just going like straight through the center of the page.
Straight through the center of the diagram. Usually we're taking like this is the chew diagram. So it's like usually if we're doing it, we're just going to aim where this cross is, basically like the center line here. That's all.
Okay.
So, and then that's it. It's pretty simple. We're starting out with 3 breaths, right? So we do that, and then just rest there for a second, few seconds, 30 seconds, and then just get up and move around. You want to again get used to sort of letting your physical body acclimate to that extra pressure energetically that we just put it through, just like you would if you were physically working out, right? Then it's sort of like you shake it out, you stretch it a little bit, you let it acclimate to what you're doing, and then move to the next one. Yep. So.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. Nice and easy.
Yeah. All right. And on the page that people are printing out that has the routine, it says it's going to say like week 1, chew 3 breaths. Then so 3 breaths is going through this cycle of going through breathing in.
Right.
Does it matter? Do you start with a breath in and then a breath out? Or
usually.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
I'm just wondering, like, because you've got your hand configuration, do you start going toward it and then pull in, or do you pull in first?
I'm drawing that energy to me first. So
Okay.
it's like I'm, priming the pump. I'm initiating that contact, right? You initiate the contact really even when you're looking at the diagram or you're putting that up.
Really?
So yeah, it's that sympathetic vibration is specifically configured to your first chakra, so Chu in this case for us. Right?
This might be a good time to say, don't print all the diagrams out and just like put them all.
Leave them out all over the place. No,
yeah.
that's not going to be good. I mean, your house isn't going to blow up, but you might hope it does. So, no, it's and again depends on people's sensitivity level too. People who are hypersensitive, they're going to that's going to mess them up a bit, because they're old diagrams and they're, it's specific, think of it as being the same type of thing as like playing all the notes of a scale all at once, all the time. Just, when you have, I have a couple grandkids, that's like, they're young enough where they love to pound on the piano or, just like, and we allow it for a while, then it's sort of like, okay, enough is enough. Let's go outside. Because that can just drive you insane, right?
Right.
So it's the same thing with these. You might not even know why you're feeling that way. We've all had those experiences where, for whatever reason, we were just in a funk through a day when it was a perfectly fine day and it was okay, you just don't feel right, whatever. Something's affecting you. It's not coming from nowhere. There's no coincidences like that, right? So you put these out all over the place and hang them up where you can see them all the time or that they're active. Usually what I do is I keep them, and the set that I use is a set that I made, and so then I'll keep them in a sleeve or something that protects them and turn them upside down and put them away, so when I use them I pull them out and use them, and so then put them away again, so that way I'm using them just for what I need, and not letting them just sort of keep moving, because they will. They'll just keep compounding more and more and more and more and more as that goes on, and you know, and it's not just that specific frequency, right? Because of course the chakra isn't one specific frequency; it's a complex combination of frequencies. Every chakra is. So it's who knows how that's sort of manifesting and stimulating in your world. It's like all the harmonics that go with that. Um, it can really throw you for a loop if you're not used to it. So I would just for sake of safety and brevity, and not throwing more at people than we need to, right? There's no reason to go into catharsis if you don't need it, right? So it will stimulate enough on its own. There's no reason to compound it and make it worse. So put them away and just put them in your desk or whatever it is. They'll be fine like that. It's not. It's a diagram. It's not something that's that we have to think about in a way that's sacrilege if we put them away or treat them unwell. I mean, of course, anything energetic, we want to treat in the way that it's supposed to be done, right? In a way that's configured. It's sort of like the idea of, like, don't read the Bible. If you're a Bible guy, it's like if you're a Christian, it's like, don't read the Bible while you're sitting on the toilet. It's just common sense in a way, it's, or any holy book or sacred book or like that. It's just respect, right? It's like, I'm not trying to get rid of that information. I'm trying to get rid of waste, and it will take that configuration, right? If I'm doing those things, you'll be flushing away, the information that you've acquired, or, some of the good things that you would get, even if you got it from reading it. It's like you're dissipating it, you're throwing it away, because that's the purpose of that area, right? So, you want to do it in a, if we want to call that respect, I think that's pretty good. It's just, we're using it in the way that it should be used. That's all. So enough said about that, really. I think, but it doesn't have to be anything, like, all kinds of things have to be done around it, and it's so sacred, and it's so this. No. It's a tool. It's a tool. And it's like the more we get on that common ground, the better we are with, especially with, the more advanced things that we do. There's plenty of things where, there are the routines that you acquire and you sort of feel right in doing, and then others that, may not be right for you. I use the same techniques that many of my teachers use, but the way that I approach them is unique for me, because I didn't have their personalities, right? And so it's really important that that you, in some ways, you go with your gut when you can discern what that is, but don't have a preconceived idea that everything is so sacred and so holy that, you've got to, there's none of that where you're bowing down to it or doing anything. Like, no, it's not like that, right? It's a tool to help you. That's all.
Cool. Okay, awesome.
Great.
So the next step is we're gonna go through each one of the Kinjas and talk about the hand configurations, and on each one of those pages there'll be people can print out the diagrams,
right?
And they'll also be able to download photographs of your hands in these configurations from many different angles. So just to put everyone's mind at ease, so they know, right, we're going to make sure they have all the details and stuff, and we'll break it into pieces so it's like you can kind of organize it and make sense of it and all that. So
exactly.
All right, cool.
All right, great.